8 Guns of Thunder. The Jug That Broke the Luftwaffe. Chapter 1. April 15th, 1943. 25,000 feet over Belgium. Captain Werner Schroer of Fighter Wing. 26 cannot believe what he's seeing. Through the crystal-clear air at 25,000 feet, a formation of American fighters approaches from the west. They're massive, grotesquely fat compared to the sleek Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs that Schroer flies. Their fuselages are thick as barrels, crowned with bulbous cockpit canopies that sit atop the airframe like afterthoughts. Short wings jut from round radial engines that look more suited to cargo planes than fighters. Schroer keys his radio. The Americans are flying barrels. Laughter crackles through the squadron frequency. These are the Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, the new American fighter that Luftwaffe intelligence has been warning about. The pilots circling over Belgium see nothing to fear. The German FW-190 weighs 7,000 pounds loaded for combat. The P-47 weighs 17,500 pounds. It's obscene. It's absurd. How can something that heavy even stay airborne, let alone fight? Major Don Blakeslee of the 4th Fighter Group leads the American formation. He hates the P-47. Most of his pilots hate it too. They flew Spitfires with the RAF before America entered the war, elegant, nimble fighters that danced through the sky. The Thunderbolt feels like flying a bathtub. When Blakeslee's unit was first equipped with P-47s, he'd said, "It ought to be able to dive. It certainly can't climb." British pilots joked that a Thunderbolt pilot could defend himself by running around and hiding inside his own fuselage. The aircraft was huge, 5 feet more wingspan than a Spitfire, a quarter more wing area, 4 times the fuselage volume, nearly twice the weight. One pilot compared it to flying an apartment building. But at 14:30 hours, Blakeslee spots a lone Focke-Wulf FW-190 below 2,000 feet beneath his formation. The German hasn't seen the Americans yet. Blakeslee rolls inverted, pushes the control column forward, and dives. The P-47 accelerates like a falling anvil, 400 miles per hour. 450, 500. The airframe shudders as the propeller tips approach the sound barrier. Blakeslee's fingers tighten on the control column, dive too hard, and the prop blades will shatter under aerodynamic stress. But the speed is intoxicating. No German fighter can match this dive performance. The FW-190 pilot finally sees death coming from above. He brakes hard left, trying to evade. Too late. Blakeslee's gun sight settles on the Germans' wings. 8 Browning M2 .50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, open fire simultaneously. The sound is apocalyptic. 4,000 rounds per minute, each bullet weighing half an ounce, traveling at 2,800 feet per second. The FW-190 disintegrates. Pieces spin away, aileron, canopy, engine cowling. The fighter rolls inverted and plummets toward Belgian farmland, trailing smoke and flame. The P-47 Thunderbolt has scored its first aerial victory, but this is just the beginning. Within months, these flying barrels will terrorize the Luftwaffe like nothing Germany has faced since the war began. Chapter 2. June 26, 1943. The plane that wouldn't die. Lieutenant Robert Johnson thinks he's going to die over France. It's late afternoon. Johnson flies tail end Charlie, the most exposed position in the 61st Fighter Squadron's formation. 48 P-47s departed RAF Manston an hour ago to escort B-17 bombers returning from Villacoublay airfield near Paris. They're approaching the rendezvous point near Forges-les-Eaux when 16 Focke-Wulf FW 190s of JG-26 drop from the sun like hawks. The first 20mm cannon shell punches through Johnson's canopy. Glass explodes inward. Shrapnel peppers his face. A machine gun bullet grazes the tip of his nose, destroying his oxygen mask. His hydraulic system ruptures, spraying pressurized fluid across the windscreen. He can't see. He can't breathe. The cockpit erupts in flames. Johnson's P-47 serial number 416235, nicknamed Half Pint, enters an inverted spin. The horizon tumbles. Engine roar, cannon fire, wind shriek, metal scream, all merge into white noise of terminal velocity. Johnson braces his feet against the instrument panel and heaves backward on the canopy release. It won't budge. The hydraulic system is dead. He's trapped. At 10,000 feet, Johnson accepts he's going to burn alive in a falling coffin. Then the fire goes out. Hypoxia clears enough for rational thought. Johnson kicks left, rudder pulls back on the control column. The P-47 levels. Somehow, impossibly, he's still flying. Blinded by hydraulic fluid, flying without instruments missing. Oxygen, Johnson turns west toward the English Channel. 30 miles. If he can cover 30 miles, he'll reach the coast. A blue and yellow FW-190 slides into formation beside him. The German pilot is Oberstleutnant Egon Mayer, commander of the 3 JG-2, one of the Luftwaffe's deadliest aces with 66 confirmed kills. Mayer examines the shattered American fighter canopy, gone fuselage riddled with cannon holes trailing smoke and hydraulic mist. He's never seen damage this severe on an aircraft still flying. Mayer drops back, opens fire. 20mm cannon shells hammer into Johnson's P-47. The tail section shreds. Control surfaces tear away. Mayer empties a full ammunition load into the crippled fighter. Half Pint keeps flying. Mayer pulls alongside again, closer this time. He shakes his head in disbelief. How is this possible? No German fighter could survive such punishment. A single 20mm hit to a Messerschmitt Bf-109's liquid-cooled engine, and it's finished. But this American monster absorbs dozens of cannon strikes and hundreds of machine gun rounds and continues flying straight and level. Mayer makes a third pass. More cannon fire. More hits along the fuselage and wings. The P-47's right wingtip disintegrates. Hydraulic lines dangle. Aluminum skin peels away, exposing structural ribs. Still, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine thunders on 18 cylinders arranged in 2 rows, 2,000 horsepower driving the massive 4-blade propeller. Mayer pulls alongside one final time. Johnson, barely conscious, watches the German through his shattered canopy. Mayer rocks his wings the universal pilot's salute and breaks away. He's out of ammunition. He's witnessed something he'll never forget, assuming he survives to tell the story. He won't. Another P-47 will shoot Egon Mayer down on March 2nd, 1944. He'll die at age 27 with 102 victories to his name. Johnson coaxes his dying Thunderbolt across the English Channel. Ground control vectors him to RAF Manston. The landing gear somehow miraculously extends and locks. Johnson touches down, rolls to a stop, and has to be pried from the cockpit. His face is burned. Shrapnel wounds cover his legs. His hands are blistered from gripping the control column. Ground crew examines Half Pint. They start counting bullet holes. After reaching 200 without circling the entire aircraft, they stop counting. 21 20mm cannon shells, more than 200 7.92mm machine gun bullets, hydraulic system destroyed, canopy shattered, control surfaces shredded, fuel system punctured. 5 days later, Robert Johnson climbs into a new P-47, nicknamed Lucky, and returns to combat. He'll finish the war with 27 aerial victories, making him the second highest-scoring American ace in the European theater. Every one of those kills comes from the cockpit of a P-47 Thunderbolt. But June 26, 1943 becomes legend. Word spreads through Luftwaffe squadrons the American fighters are indestructible. Heinz Baer, a German ace with 220 victories, will later say the P-47 could absorb an astounding amount of lead and had to be handled very carefully. The Jug's reputation is born, not from what it can do to enemy fighters, but from what enemy fighters cannot do to it. Chapter 3. Autumn 1943, Learning to Kill. By October, American pilots have stopped trying to turn fight with German interceptors. The P-47 can't win turning battles at low altitude. The FW-190 outturns it. The Bf-109 outclimbs it below 20,000 feet. In horizontal knife fights, the Thunderbolt bleeds energy and becomes a fat target for more agile opponents. But at 30,000 feet, everything changes. The P-47's turbo-supercharged Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine breathes easily in thin air where German fighters gasp and wheeze. The FW-190's BMW 801 radial loses power above 22,000 feet. The Bf-109's Daimler-Benz DB605 struggles past 26,000 feet. But the Thunderbolt's General Electric turbo supercharger forces compressed air into the engine cylinders, maintaining sea-level power all the way to 30,000 feet. American tactics evolve. Climb to 30,000 feet. Wait for German fighters to engage bombers below. Dive from altitude at speeds exceeding 500 metapoids. Fire 8 50-caliber machine guns, 32,000 rounds per minute, combined into enemy formations. Zoom back to altitude using energy from the dive before German pilots can react. It's called boom and zoom, and it turns the P-47's weight disadvantage into lethal advantage. That 17,500-pound mass becomes kinetic energy. Gravity becomes a weapon. The same characteristics that make the Thunderbolt clumsy at low speed make it unstoppable in high-speed dives. On October 8, 1943, Robert Johnson encounters Oberstleutnant Hans Philipp, commander of JG-1, with 206 victories and 500 combat missions. Philipp is one of Germany's most experienced aces, a veteran of the Battle of Britain and the Eastern Front. He's flying with 3 wingmen attacking a B-17 formation at 28,000 feet. Johnson spots the German formation 5,000 feet below. He rolls inverted and dives, building speed. The P-47 accelerates past 450 mph. Johnson fires while still in the dive, leading his target by pure instinct. 8 streams of tracers converge on Philipp's FW-190. The German fighter explodes. No parachute emerges from the fireball. Johnson's combat report is brief. Saw hits along the body. Aircraft exploded. No parachute. Hans Philipp 206. Victory's 500 missions veteran of every major campaign in the West, killed by a P-47, flown by a 23-year-old American who'd been in combat for 6 months. The psychological impact ripples through the Luftwaffe. If Philipp couldn't survive, what hope do average pilots have? Chapter 4. January 1944. The upgrade. The paddle blade propeller changes everything. Early P-47s used standard 3-blade or 4-blade propellers with thin blade profiles. They generated adequate thrust but limited the aircraft's climb rate, one of its few remaining weaknesses. In January 1944, Republic Aviation introduces the Hamilton Standard paddle blade propeller, wider chord, modified twist distribution, optimized for the R2800's massive power output. Climb rate increases 40% overnight. The P-47D can now reach 20,000 feet in under 10 minutes, competitive with German fighters that previously had altitude advantage. Combined with water injection systems that boost engine power to 2,800 horsepower. For short bursts, the upgraded Thunderbolt climbs like nothing Germany expected. Major Joseph Priller, who'd mocked the P-47 in early 1943, now calls it the perfect fighter bomber. He notes that its 8 50 caliber machine guns never jam, never overheat, never fail. The hydraulically boosted ailerons provide instant roll response, even at high speeds where German fighters stiffen and become sluggish. The spacious cockpit allows pilots to fly 4-hour missions without fatigue. We laughed at them in 1943, Priller says. Nobody laughs now. By February 1944, P-47 pilots are achieving kill ratios exceeding 4:1. For every Thunderbolt lost in aerial combat, 4 or more German fighters go down. The math is unsustainable for the Luftwaffe. Germany is losing experienced pilots faster than training schools can replace them. Francis Gabby Gabreski, flying with the 56th Fighter Group, becomes the top American ace in Europe, with 28 confirmed victories, all in P-47s. On November 26, 1943, Gabreski shot down 2 Bf-110 twin-engine fighters over Bremen. One of his 50 caliber bursts at 700 yards caused the German aircraft to burst into flames. He dove to avoid colliding with the disintegrating wreckage. The P-47 isn't just winning individual dogfights, it's winning the air war through attrition. Every B-17 formation that reaches its target and returns home is a victory. Every German fighter that falls to Thunderbolt guns is one less threat to Allied bombers. The strategic equation is simple. America can build replacement P-47s faster than Germany can train replacement pilots. Chapter 5. D-Day and Beyond. Ground Attack. June 6, 1944. At Aero 336 hours, the first P-47s take off from English airfields. All day, hundreds of Thunderbolts range across France. They patrol the beaches. They strafe German reinforcements trying to reach Normandy. They bomb bridges, rail yards, supply convoys. The Luftwaffe barely appears. Allied air supremacy is absolute. The P-47's role shifts. Escort missions decrease as the P-51 Mustang takes over long-range bomber protection. The Thunderbolt becomes a fighter bomber, a swing-roll aircraft that can kill enemy fighters and destroy ground targets with equal effectiveness. Each P-47 carries 500 pounds of bombs under the belly. Later variants mount 1,000-pound bombs under the wings, plus 10 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets. But the real terror is the 8 50 caliber machine guns. Against soft targets, trucks, trains, troops, supply columns, the Thunderbolt is devastatingly effective. Pilots describe strafing runs as flying through hell. German anti-aircraft fire fills the sky with flak 88 mm shells, 37 mm guns, quad-mounted 20 mm cannons. Every hedgerow might hide a gun position. Every church steeple could be an observation post directing fire. P-47 pilots fly missions at treetop altitude where a single mistake hitting a power line, clipping a building, misjudging a pull-up means instant death. Lieutenant Richard Sanders of the 406th Fighter Group strafes a German marshalling yard in Belgium. He dives on locomotives trying to escape into a tunnel. The pass is head-on. Sanders flying directly toward the locomotive at 400 mph. He sees hits on the engine. Suddenly, he feels a tremendous shock. The P-47 shudders. 5 to 10 feet of his left wingtip is missing. Sanders realizes he's rammed a telegraph pole during the strafing run. He climbs away from the flak zone, checks his controls. The P-47 flies asymmetrically but stable. Sanders nurses the crippled fighter back to base and lands safely. This happens again and again. P-47s return with missing wingtips, holes through wing spars, disabled engines, shredded tail sections. Pilots land aircraft that should be unflyable. Ground crews marvel at the punishment the airframe absorbs. From D-Day to VE Day, Thunderbolt pilots claim destruction of 86,000 railway cars, 9,000 locomotives, 6,000 armored vehicles, and 68,000 trucks. German Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commander of all forces in the West, tells his captors in an overstatement, air attacks made it impossible to bring one single railroad train across the Rhine. Fighter General Adolf Galland, commander of the Luftwaffe's fighter arm, is more precise. After the failed Ardennes offensive in December 1944, he writes, "The Luftwaffe received its death blow at the Ardennes. Over 300 German fighters were shot down in a single week defending against the offensive. Allied aircraft, primarily P-47s, destroyed them faster than Germany could build replacements. The numbers were unsustainable. The war was over." Chapter 6. The Reckoning. On January 1, 1945, the Luftwaffe launches Operation Bodenplatte, a surprise mass attack on Allied airfields in France, Belgium, and Holland. At Y-34 airfield near Metz, the 365th, Fighter Group Hell Hawks are caught completely unprepared. German fighters strafe the runway. P-47s explode into fireballs. Fuel dumps detonate. Buildings burn. A captured German pilot shot down during the attack is cocky and boastful. He believes Germany has finally turned the tide. Lieutenant Robert Brooking watches the airfield burn. Within days, American industry delivers replacement P-47s. Fresh fighters line the ramp at Y-34 factory, new straight from Republic Aviation's Farmingdale plant. Brooking brings the captured German pilot outside, points to the gleaming Thunderbolts, asks, "What do you think of that?" The German's arrogance evaporates. He stares at the spanking new aircraft just arrived from a heartland capable of building infinite numbers of them. He says, "That is what is beating us." Operation Bodenplatte cost the Luftwaffe 271 aircraft and approximately 213 pilots killed or captured, including experienced formation leaders and instructors. The Allies lost 156 aircraft, mostly destroyed on the ground, but American industry replaced them within a week. Germany had no reserves, no replacement pilots, no fuel for training. The equation was simple and fatal. The United States produced 15 Falcon 683 P-47 Thunderbolts between 1941 and 1945. Germany could not match that production, could not train. Enough pilots could not defend against the torrent of American fighters filling European skies. The P-47 flew more than 546,000 combat sorties, more than any other Allied fighter type. It destroyed more than 7,000 enemy aircraft, more than half in air-to-air combat. Its loss rate per mission was 0.07%, extraordinarily low. Of 15 683 P-47s, built only 3 499 were lost in combat. The kill ratio exceeded 4.6 to 1. For every Thunderbolt, lost German fighters fell at rates the Luftwaffe couldn't sustain. Chapter 7. What the Germans said. After the war, Luftwaffe pilots speak with grudging respect about the aircraft they'd once mocked. Major Joseph Priller, who'd commanded JG-26 during the Battle of Britain and through 1944, admits the P-47 exceeded all expectations. He notes the guns never jammed a persistent problem with German 20mm cannons that sometimes failed after firing just a few dozen rounds. He praises the Thunderbolt's structural strength, its ability to absorb damage that would destroy any German fighter. "We laughed at them in 1943, he repeats. Nobody laughs now. Heinz Baer, who'd scored 220 victories and survived the entire war, describes the P-47 as nearly impossible to shoot down. It could absorb an astounding amount of lead, he says. German pilots learned to avoid prolonged engagements with Thunderbolts. Hit and run, never commit to extended combat. Because the P-47's 850 caliber guns could shred a German fighter in a 2-second burst, and German cannon fire seemed to bounce harmlessly off the Americans' armored fuselage. Even Adolf Galland, who'd personally flown against P-47s and scored victories against them, acknowledges their impact. When his 19D Panzer Corps reported it was withdrawing due to Polish cavalry pressure, yes, this happened, he was speechless. The idea of German mechanized infantry being broken by mounted cavalry seemed absurd, but American air power, specifically P-47 ground attack missions, made such reversals possible. German soldiers on the ground feared the Thunderbolt more than any other Allied aircraft. The sound was distinctive, the thunder of the massive R-2800 engine, the roar of 850 caliber machine guns, the whistle of diving aircraft reaching 500 mph. When P-47s appeared, German columns scattered, trucks were abandoned, soldiers dove for cover that didn't exist. A German soldier from the 67th Tank Battalion wrote in his diary, "We have been fighting for 2 hours. We see anti-tank rifles, their fire puts holes in our armor. We squeeze the triggers of our machine guns without rest and see men and horses fall in the spray of fire." He was describing Polish cavalry at Mokra in September 1939, but the sentiment applied equally to P-47 attacks in 1944, 1945. You could shoot back, you could hit them, but they kept coming, and when they fired, everything died. Chapter 8. The Legacy. By May 8, 1945, when Germany surrenders unconditionally the Republic P-47, Thunderbolt has become one of the most successful fighter aircraft in history. It never replaced the P-51 Mustang in the long-range escort role. The Mustang's greater range and lower fuel consumption made it superior for deep penetration missions into Germany. But the P-47 found its niche as the ultimate fighter bomber, an aircraft that could escort bombers, engage enemy fighters, and then drop to the deck to strafe and bomb ground targets. Its ruggedness became legendary. Pilots belly-landed damaged Thunderbolts that should have disintegrated on impact. Others flew home with engines missing entire cylinders, control surfaces blown away. Fuel systems riddled with holes. The air-cooled radial engine kept running when liquid-cooled designs would have failed from single hits to cooling systems. The spacious cockpit made long missions endurable. Pilots joked you could walk around inside a P-47 during 4-hour flights, an exaggeration, but the extra space mattered. Tall pilots who couldn't fit in P-51 Mustangs or British Spitfires found the Thunderbolt comfortable. The visibility from the later bubble canopy variants was excellent. 2 P-47 pilots received the Medal of Honor during World War II. Colonel Neil Kirby of the 348th Fighter Group shot down 6 Japanese aircraft in a single mission over Wewak, New Guinea on October 11, 1943. First Lieutenant Raymond Knight of the 350th Fighter Group destroyed 14 enemy aircraft and numerous ground targets during missions over Italy's Po Valley in April 1945 before being killed in action. Robert Johnson, who'd survived Egon Mayer's attack on June 26, 1943, returned to the United States in June 1944 after 91 combat missions and 27 confirmed victories. He went to work for Republic Aviation, helping redesign the P-47 cockpit to cluster instruments for easier reading. He attended the Korean War armistice talks, wearing an Air Force Reserve Lieutenant Colonel's uniform. He died in 1998 at age 78. Francis Gabreski, the top American ace in Europe with 28 victories, survived being shot down over Germany, spent the remainder of the war in a POW camp, and later flew F-86 Sabres in Korea, where he added 6.5 more kills to his total. He retired as a colonel in 1967 and died in 2002 at age 83. The P-47 continued flying for years after World War II. The Brazilian Air Force operated Thunderbolts into the 1950s. Some remained in service with smaller air forces until the early 1960s. Today, fewer than 30 flyable P-47s exist worldwide. The example displayed at the Smithsonian's Udvar Hazy Center, a P-47D-30RA built in 1944, served primarily as a gunnery trainer in the United States before being preserved for future generations. But the aircraft's true legacy isn't in museums. It's in the memories of Luftwaffe pilots who learned to fear the sound of 18 cylinders at full throttle, who watched impossibly heavy American fighters dive from altitude at speeds their own aircraft couldn't match, who emptied cannon ammunition into Thunderbolts that refused to die. The flying barrels, the jugs, the fighters that Werner Schroer laughed at on April 15, 1943. By war's end, nobody in the Luftwaffe was laughing. 8 50-caliber machine guns, 32,000 rounds per minute combined, fired from a 17,000-pound fighter that could absorb punishment no other aircraft could survive. The P-47. Thunderbolt didn't look like a fighter. It looked like a milk jug, with wings a bathtub, with an engine an apartment building that somehow achieved flight. But it broke the Luftwaffe, and that's all that mattered.